do that, Willie. Somebody during your career took time out for you somewhere. I don't know who it is and but somebody showed you that type. And what happens is, in life, there's where you become a mentor without even being around him, because he will
and see, I know the kid's family. His dad played with my dad and my brother at UAPB. His dad's been locked up a long time. So I've been talking to them kids, trying to go see them kids since the 9th grade. I grew up with a mom and dad. My dad played football at Michigan State, tore his knee up and came back, became a dentist, went to Howard Dental School and brought my mom back to Pine Bluff. So I understand, because he had 8 brothers and sisters, and how he grew up and what he had to go through. And I grew up with all my family in Pine Bluff. So I think I'm obligated to go back. I try to talk the kid, about school, and he's talking about he don't want to go to school and don't. So I think I have an obligation. And I told the kid, I said, what my grandparents and people had to go through, not getting past the 1st grade and 3rd grade, my grandparents, and then the next generation going to college, I said, you got to be the one to set the tone for your family. I said, a lot of them haven't graduated. None of them have graduated. You got to be the first one to graduate. You got to be the first one to start that next blessing in the line for your family. And these kids, they have to understand it, because a lot of them are growing up with their mom and dad, and they raising themselves. So, they got to know somebody cares for them. And I know some of these kids are hard-headed, but you got to stay on them and try to keep them going in the right direction, because I had that guidance growing up, and that's what helped me get to where I am.
Yes, and also input on that. Every kid I share with that your parents and your mother and father's greatest wish is, okay, well, how do you know my parents' greatest wish? Well, I'm going to tell you what your parents' greatest wish is. Your parents' greatest wish is that you come in contact with somebody who care about you while they're at work, while they're on the other side of town, while they're on the other side of other state. And now, I care about you. That's what you're saying with it. I care about you. But now, in this picture, you have a responsibility yourself to conduct yourself as a good citizen, to respect others, to respect yourself, make good choices. See, so this wish don't even, it starts with me, but also start with you. It comes to conclusion with me. It comes conclusion with you. So it's made as one. So if you're gonna be in my presence, you have to know your parents' greatest wish. And such a ripple effect. It's so ripple effect when a kid understands how much joy he pierces mom and dad with. Then she talks to the grandparents. Then the grandparents talks to her other siblings. And then the nieces and nephews get motivated. It's such a ripple effect that spreads so wide. And that's what I try to get them to see. And what you're saying, Willie, is so, so important, man. It is. I mean, it's the ultimate, really. It is. I'll tell you.
Good stuff, guys.
And guys,
good stuff.
Without a doubt. Listen, and I want to get all 3 of your thoughts on this. I know it's a touchy subject, but I've never been accused of being the smartest guy in the room. Le'Veon Bell made the decision to not report to the Pittsburgh Steelers this week and sign his franchise tag. So, therefore, of course, he sits out for the season. I don't begrudge anyone's opportunity to make a living and make as much money as you can while doing it, especially doing what you guys did, because your body will only hold up for so long, as you know. But tell me how you feel, how you would feel if you're the teammate sitting in that locker room and your teammate, such as Bell, made that kind of decision. How would you feel? Go ahead.
You know what happened? I have a little input on this.
Right.
Le'Veon was upset about the contract situation. Le'Veon has not been, as you saw, he was hanging out in Miami, not practicing. Mm-hmm. See, it's hard to go if you haven't been doing football drills and doing what you should have been doing with your body the whole time. You can't. He had to go up and show up and get back to work, and he's been injured the last couple of years too in the playoffs. When Le'Veon Bell saw what happened to Dez Bryant, who was not training. T.O. tried to work out with him, wasn't training, doing what he's supposed to be doing, and was a little heavy, and probably been playing too much basketball. He loves basketball. I was a basketball player in high school. He loves playing basketball, so he probably been running up and down the basketball court, already probably tweaked that Achilles. Wasn't doing football drills, just show up. You can't do that. You have to prepare your body and put them cleats on, run up and down that field. That's the difference. When Le'Veon saw Dez Bryant tear his Achilles, and he turned down that 3-year, $21 million, and he's making $600,000 this year, Le'Veon decided to shut it down. He'll wait till next year. Hopefully somebody will give him $30 million, whatever, guaranteed. I know he's missing this year, but I don't think he was prepared. He's been working out at the LA Fitness a little bit, but he hasn't been doing football drill activities, and he's worried about getting hurt, and he's worried about in the long-term goal coming back next year and getting that guaranteed money. Because if he came back and got hurt this year, he wasn't going to sign a big deal out after this season. And you guys go ahead and say what y'all think about it, too.
Well, Willie, before you guys go on, as his offensive lineman, are you ready? And you just got done a couple of minutes ago talking about how you need to keep your body in shape, all year round, especially playing at the high level that you did. As his teammate, as his offensive lineman, are you reaching out to him while he's sitting out and saying, "Come on, man, what are you doing?"
By this point. As well as that kid Connor's playing, you need him going into the stretch run, but other than that, you don't need to come. It's week 9, 10 of the season. He should have already came in. He should have came in, but he should have came in on. He said he was coming on a bye week, and he didn't show up. We're week 10 of the football season, and now we got things rolling. I don't know. I don't know if I want him to come in now. It's week 10 of the season. Yeah, we could use Le'Veon Bell, but if it's not going to be the Le'Veon Bell and he's not in shape and all he's doing is worried about money, that can be a distraction to the locker room as well. So I think the smartest thing for him to do, if he wasn't in shape and ready to go, he can't come in out of shape, and these guys are trying to make the playoffs. It's not going to look good on him, and it's going to hurt him time for the contract. So I think if he's worried about his money, and that's what he's really focused on, then I think that was the best decision he made, was not to come back.
Snatcher.
My take on that is I really can't get in the mind of that particular brain because I've never been in that situation. But what I do know, there's somebody in his ear. Because anytime you can turn down that kind of money and you look back over your shoulder where you come from and all the people that you could help, mom and dad, it has a significant amount of pictures that will be fully painted. Now, here's what I'm going to say. He may know something through the grapevine that nobody else knows, that him and his agent could have really seen. But I would like for a man to make his own decision, and I think that's what he's doing. He's making his decision, and whichever way it pans out, I really think, be honest with you, I really think that running back that's in Pittsburgh, Le'Veon is saying, that's your job now. Mm-hmm. That's your house. That you beat cancer. You're doing a tremendous job. I'm not saying that's why he made that big contract he turned down. That's not what I'm saying. But these thoughts do go through. I would think these thoughts go through his mind. Now, he probably would end up getting paid from somebody, maybe the Jets.
Yeah,
he's probably like Rose said. He's about the money now. He's not gonna he's not gonna go somewhere like Kansas City. They already got a good back. He's not gonna go somewhere like New England. New England don't pay. Okay, so he's not gonna go to the Saints. So I'm looking at a very few teams that's really tossing up. Now the Jets can pay him. A lot of Cleveland can pay him. They got money on the table, and he might just like Rose said, he might be for the money.
Yeah. You know, they got those guys in Los Angeles, but now they're going to be in Las Vegas pretty soon. The Raiders could possibly pay him, right? Think about it. These guys need to have a splash. You got a splashy guy like Le'Veon. I doubt if they bring Marshawn Lynch back, you know. And Gruden has to do something. They got to fill up that stadium when they get there. So having a guy like Le'Veon could be able to help them out as well. Let me just give you my take on this, man. And I was kind of shocked by the players' response today when they raided his locker and took his gear, man. And that kind of shocked me from a standpoint. Yeah, I know the guy made the decision, but still, that's his personal property. Why, you know, I just thought today's players are kind of different. Would you guys have had guys to do that in the past in the locker room, to take somebody's gear if they weren't there?
No. I mean, I'm kind of one of them people that I don't bring drama.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have been in the camera. I would have been gone. I'd have been home, maybe flipping a burger on the grill and talking to my wife and kids. That's not me. That's not me.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked about that.
No, they should have sent him and stuff. You don't let anybody raid your locker. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have been over there doing that. You know, I understand that they know he's not coming back over there, so I guess they're like, you know, it doesn't matter. So they want that stuff to say they got Le'Veon Bell stuff and put it in their trophy case. But I wouldn't have done that. You know, I think he got upset about what they said, about what some of the people were saying and the way they were critiquing him. But I don't think he was in the best shape, and I don't think he was. I think mentally, we're not looking at the mental aspect of this. Mentally, you got to gear up every year to go out there and play that game. So guys, while you're playing football every year, even in the off season, I got to always be thinking about. It's almost time for me to get ready, start working out. I got to get ready to be prepared. I got to get my body back right. So even when you're playing in the league, you can cut it off a little bit, but you really can't. You always got to be thinking and thinking about. I got training camps around the corner. We're gonna start OTAs. We're gonna start practicing. We're gonna start doing this, and this. It's the same thing every year, and you're always being evaluated every year. So. You know, maybe his body and mind, because he's been coming into camp late every year, maybe he wanted a break from it just to let everything go. So maybe it's not all about the money. That's a lot of money to walk away from. But if he might get injured, he wasn't going to go back and risk getting injury. And like you said, he might already have some teams that are lined up that want him, that already got some money he knows he's going to get guaranteed. So if he knows he's got $40 million waiting and it's guaranteed already, I'm not going to go in here these last 6 weeks and get hurt when I know they're going to trade me and I got $40 million guaranteed sitting around the corner. I'm not going to risk it.
Right.
That's right.
Right. Okay. Well, guys, you guys have been awesome and terrific to have with us tonight. Let me get your predictions on what you guys believe the Saints' trek would be headed into the playoffs. Willie?
What do you mean? What the record's going to be?
No. What do you think is going to happen for the Saints coming down the line these next 7 games?
Well,
I think the Saints are going to go 14-2 or 13-3. The toughest game on the schedule, the Carolina Panthers were playing good until last week. They're still going to be a tough out. You know, I think other than that, I mean, maybe they lose one more game. Or they got maybe a tough game on the road. But I think the Saints go 14-2, probably 13-3, and they have home field throughout the playoffs.
Good. Snatcher?
Yeah. I just make it short and sweet. Don't fix it if it ain't broke. I know everybody can dig that one. Everybody can dig that one. Don't fix it if it ain't broke. It ain't broke. Keep it rolling. Ain't nothing else need to be said, man. After scoring what they scored in the last month, and at the high potent offense and the defensive plan, come on now. I can't elaborate too much because it ain't nothing broken.
I got you, Snatcher. All right, Bob.
I'll tell you what, I was worried about this Philadelphia game coming in because this is a desperate defending champion team. With still a lot of skill players, and with the news that Armstead was going to be out, I know Bushrod is capable. I know they have other options, slide and Pete over, or even flip-flop and Ramczyk if they had to. But after listening to you guys, I feel pretty confident that not only can Bushrod do the job, but that Sean Payton is going to gear his protection schemes to protect Breeze that much more if they do have problems. And other than that, I think that they should be able to handle Philadelphia. I agree with you, Willie. I think the 2 Carolina games are the toughest ones remaining on their schedule. Not that they're going to look past Dallas, and definitely not going to look past Atlanta or Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
But Carolina is just such a physical matchup. I'll tell you, I think that the team's rolling. I agree with you guys. They're not going to mess around or try to get too cute because they just know that when they step out on that field, that their preparation and skill level is just that far superior to just about anybody left on their schedule. So I would be surprised if they did go anywhere. I predicted 12-4 coming into the season. At this point, Willie, I agree with you. I think I could see them going 13-3 or 14-2, and either one of those records will almost definitely get them the home field advantage. And anybody coming into the Louisiana Superdome for a playoff game against this New Orleans Saints team, including the Rams, good luck. So I think that they're sitting,
and the defense is going to get better. I think Apple's going to improve as the year goes on. That D lineman, the 92, the big kid they traded up to draft, the guy hurt. He's coming back this year, right?
Yeah.
He's got that injury. He's coming back. I mean, that defense is going to be rolling, and then if that defense gets rolling, watch out because you already know what that offense does. If that defense gets rolling, it could get real ugly for a lot of teams.
No question.
Definitely.
Hey guys, I have to go.
Well, Snatcher, man, it's good hearing your voice again. I'm glad you're back on the air with us. Really do appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
I appreciate everybody, and I thank everybody for everything they have said tonight because there's a lot of listeners that we really put them in the frame of an NFL mind, and I think it was collectively. Everybody did it. And have a great week, and thanks, everybody. Have a nice night.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
Snatch. And Willie, thank you so much as well. We really do appreciate you being on, and Bob and I, we're honored that you're here as well.
Oh, thank you for having me. I want everybody to have a real good Thanksgiving, and man, it's going to be fun watching the rest of this season and just be along for the ride. But like I said, the Saints, I don't think they're going to take anybody for granted. And if they come and play their air, like you said, Bob, if they come and play their A game, they control their own destiny at this point.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I agree with everything that Kyle said. It was such a privilege and an honor watching you on the field. Taking a couple trips out to Canton to see your bust and just to know that I'm talking to not only such a great player, but such a great person too. You've always been an instrumental part of your community. And I mean, it was daunting to talk to you in person. And you gave so much to our show and to our listeners tonight. I hope to have you on again.
Yeah. Thank y'all for having me. I would love to come back on later this year.
Thank you, Willie. Thank you so much.
All right.
Take care.
All right.
Have a good evening. Wow, Bob, that was some great stuff, man.
It most certainly was by both guys. I mean, you and I could have just sat, leaned back in recliners and put the show on speaker and let those two go at it. They didn't need us, but they gave so much great information, and it is so fun. We've had so many great guests on. And so much participation, and it's just been so interesting to pick the brains of all of our guests. but yeah, I mean, having both these guys on tonight, and it was really cool to get their perspectives from from their respective sides of the ball.
Yeah.
I felt like I was in the huddle with them. They did a great job.
Yeah, yeah. And if the listeners really replay and think back about what both Willie as well as Snatcher was saying, is it's about the mental approach as well. If you take care of the mental approach, especially ahead of time, going into whatever situation you go into, you pretty much have won the game, and that's not only the game on the football field, that's also the game in life. That's one of the things that he has taught me over the years of just being around him as a family member, and he's really been great. He was like my pseudo mentor growing up as well, man. I met Snatcher when I was 11 when he was dating my cousin, and he took me under his wing, and he just shared a lot of life experiences into me and took time with me. And that's the one thing I really appreciated. He always took time, and now these days he's doing the same thing for high school kids and middle school kids. He's doing a lot of that in Orlando, Florida area. So, but
I know Willie coached some too. I think at the high school level after he retired. We didn't get a chance to ask him if he still coached, but just to hear some of his verbiage. That he takes great pride in being an influence in young people's lives too, and that's what this is all about, really. As parents, or if you're not parents, as a mentor to somebody in your life, be a positive influence, and that's what I took away from it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, man, I tell you, we haven't been able to visit with one another over the past couple of weeks due to scheduling I had with business trips and things to that nature. I need to go back to the Rams game just briefly with you. And we talked about the offensive line, and also we have to give kudos to the defensive line as well. I think where the Saints are winning and how they're winning is right there, those two spots, man. And that has really been a major key component to the success of the New Orleans Saints, and how they frustrated Aaron Donald. That's the thing that was missing. And I don't think too many national media people want to say this. Remember, Aaron Donald got very upset in that game because he couldn't get to Breeze. He couldn't make a play. Sue's going to be a liability to them down the line. And I watched the L.A. Game against Seattle, man. They both were getting frustrated again. And Sue was getting frustrated. He cost them a penalty. I just wonder, because, he has that propensity of doing this, if he's going to cost them in the playoffs, possibly, if they get frustrated, what's going to happen? Are they going to have a costly penalty at a inopportune time? So, any penalty is inopportune, but what I'm saying, at a critical juncture of the game. What are your thoughts?
No, you know what? I thought the exact same thing. I was not only impressed, and I realized the score was a bit of a shootout when New Orleans played Los Angeles, and I think all of us expected that. But the Saints physically had control of the game by midway through the second period on. Give the Rams credit for making a couple of big, deep plays to stay in the game, but watching it, you just felt like that New Orleans has control of this game. That if they lose, if the Saints would have lost, that it would have been because of a mistake that they made rather than the Rams just taking control. And then when I watched the Rams against Seattle last week, I said the same thing. I said this defense looks like it's wearing down. And that's the one thing that we have said about the Rams basically since midsummer. Is that you couldn't question their star power, But because of the moves, the big salaried moves that they made, they were a lot thinner. And maybe, some of the people that they brought in, I think we called them character concerns, but I probably, looking back on it, probably the more accurate terminology to use would have maybe been undisciplined, which Sue has a history of. Marcus Peters has a history of. Aqib Talib has a history of. And Aaron Donald, like you pointed out, he's been flustered the last couple of weeks himself. So you do have to wonder whether they're becoming a little bit frazzled. Are they still the top competitor or one of the other top competitors in the NFC and throughout the NFL? Absolutely. I've not seen anything otherwise, but I am seeing a couple more chinks in their armor than I am seeing in the armor of the New Orleans Saints for sure.
Yeah. Composure. How a championship team can keep their composure down the stretch is going to be very important. And do you have enough leaders? I know Wade Phillips is a great stabilizing force for that defensive squad out there, but do you have enough leaders who have been there, done that can really be the key for that team down the stretch? And I just wonder, because when that guy hit Donald when he was going out of bounds, when he thought he recovered the fumble, and how he viciously went after the guy, that really, I was kind of puzzled, because I'm thinking, you're the most valuable defensive player in the National Football League per se. Yes, why are you attacking another guy? And he's really incensed. And I'm thinking, this is not the time to behave that way, So that's something to look at, man. Something to wonder, because if you look at the Saints, and you got the stabilizing force on the offensive side with Drew, but bringing in Brandon Marshall, and we didn't get an opportunity to really talk to Snatcher much about this, but this kid he knows this is it. This is his one opportunity. Never been in the playoffs all this time in the league. He's number 6 or 7 on the receiving yardage for wide receivers, and people forget this. Had several seasons as 1,000-yard wide receiver. This is not a person who doesn't understand the game. Maybe he may not be as fast. He's not a number 1 wide receiver, but he sure can take some of the pressure off of Michael Thomas, and that's why Dez Bryant was going to be such a critical force for the Saints as well. What are your thoughts?
No, I completely agree. And like you said, we didn't really have we weren't on air last week, so we didn't have a chance to talk about the Dez signing. But we did know coming into last week, after the Rams game, that New Orleans was going to sign someone. And it looked like it was going to come down to Dez Bryant or Brandon Marshall. I personally, before anybody was signed, I personally preferred Marshall. I love it. I've always loved his game. Now that it ended up being Bryant, and then after Bryant got hurt, of course, then they signed Marshall a couple of days ago. Either player is going to be expected to fill the same role like you just outlined. They're no longer number 1 wide receivers, either one of them. Yes, extremely productive while in their prime, but neither are in their prime. And New Orleans has arguably the best receiver, and certainly one of the most dominant this year in Michael Thomas, a very physical receiver that secondaries just cannot match up with. Where New Orleans has struggled, and this has been over the last year and a half, is their complementary targets. If a defense manages to not so much contain, but minimize the damage that Michael Thomas and even Alvin Kamara can do in the passing game, no one else has consistently been able to step up. And that's why I think that first Bryant and then Marshall signings made sense to me, because I love Keith Kirkwood, and I think he's going to be a very good receiver, but he's inexperienced. Last week was the first week he got a hat. And, you're talking about some big games coming up, some big moments, and then which get ratcheted up even more when you get into the playoffs. Traquan Smith's still a rookie. I think he's going to be a good one, but he hasn't produced consistently. So bringing Marshall in to the fold, he is still, like you said, he no longer has the deep speed. He wasn't the fastest guy to begin with, but he brings a physical presence. Brandon has always been a sharp route runner and a student of the game, and he's never, just like with Bryant, he's never played with a quarterback this accurate. Marshall, I think, stands about 6'5", and again, he's a physical battler, which is going to be key, especially in the red zone and on short and mid-yardage situations. Breeze is going to put the ball where it needs to be. There's no question about that. Once Drew establishes some trust and rapport with Marshall, I think Marshall could put up some decent and serviceable numbers. He no longer has to be the 100-catch, 1,500-yard receiver that he has been numerous times over his career. He just needs to come up big in big moments, or more importantly, make the defense respect his presence on the field. And he only needs to make a couple plays to do that because he has the pedigree to earn the respect beyond that. And that's going to be key for this Saints offense.
Look, you have a guy at his size, his ability to snatch that ball, because he is a strong-handed wide receiver, a guy that can get vertical, let's say between 10 to 20 yards, and if he's one-on-one with a safety or a linebacker, I like his chances. That's the keys right there, or a smaller nickel cornerback. Sean Payton is already devising, and that's what he was going to use Dez for, right? To be able to take that pressure off of Michael Thomas, put that guy in some positions where, not only will Thomas be our number one focus, but we need to have somebody a little bit more consistent at the number two. And that only comes from experience and how you're able to play the game, how you're able to be physical. And that's another thing that both of those guys had, Dez as well as Brandon. They're physical wide receivers. And right now, man, when you're playing for a playoff spot, physicality is crucial. And I think you see it in how the Saints offense and defensive lines have been playing very physical. I know Chris Sims called us the bullies of the NFL.
Yeah.
I was surprised he even gave us any props, Chris Sims. But it's starting to really, I'm starting to see it more and more, how these guys are out. I wouldn't say outplaying, but really opposing their will. Is that a better way of saying it? So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the way I've described it too. It is just imposing their will, and kind of like Willie pointed out tonight, they have been doing this all season, really from the first drive of the game. We saw it really stand out, against Baltimore, Minnesota, and then last week against Cincinnati. I think in those three games, their first drives of the game were minimum of 15 plays. A couple of them went 20 and 22 plays. That demoralizes a defense. Like both our Pro Bowlers said tonight, that demoralizes a defense. And then after that, you come to the sidelines after a drive like that, and you have momentum. And then the onus is on you to play well enough to not give it up. And these guys they sense the dominance that they have had, and they've rode with it. And it's been really impressive to watch, because even watching most of these games on TV, you can see how the other defense just kind of lets down And even that close game against the Rams, you knew that the Rams were going to come back, fight back a little bit. But by halftime, you felt pretty good. Again, like we said before, that the Saints physically had control. They physically had the advantage, and they knew it.
Right.
And they're a confident bunch.
Right. Look, I know everything is gamesmanship, right? But when Los Angeles and Cincinnati won the coin toss and they said, no, we're going to defer, give it to the Saints, and then you think we're going to put our defenses out there and stop them, right, and take a possession away. But when they went down on those first drives to be able to put the ball in the end zone, 7 points, that's demoralizing as well, like you said, right? And especially to have it where you have 10-plus plays going down the field and just methodically just picking apart a team. Any defense psychologically is going to be whooped. And I really believe if we can continue to really one-up on the psychological side, I think we're going to have really some special moments coming down the line for the New Orleans Saints. Now, this Philadelphia team, that defense is not to be taken lightly. I know they have some holes, right? Darby is out. They have some other guys in the secondary that have been beat up, but they still have some good presence on their defensive line that we need to take note of. When we play Atlanta and Dallas, those are going to be quick turnaround games. Man, we've got to really, that late game coming out of Philadelphia, man, we're really going to have to come out healthy. That's what I'm really concerned about more than anything else, man. So, Bob, it's going to be an interesting next 3 games for the Saints. 3 games in how many days is it? 11 days? I hate when we do those stretches. I don't know why the NFL always does that to the Saints. You notice that's almost like every year around the same time the NFL does, let's give the Saints 3 games in 11 days. They should be able to do it.
And it's not only that, but it's the opponents that they threw them up against. I mean, the Philly might be 4-5 right now, but nobody even thought they were going to be that coming into the season. Again, they're the defending Super Bowl champions, and then 4 days later, you have them playing. You have New Orleans lining up against their most bitter and physical rival, also a Super Bowl contender coming into the season.
I don't know about that anymore.
But I mean, they are still the Falcons, and as we all know, on either side of this rivalry, you throw records out the window. It is going to be a physical, brutal affair, and then you turn around. Now, at least the Cowboys game, which is also on a Thursday, you will have a full week, so it'll be back to business as usual after the Atlanta game. As you pointed out, I am more concerned with the turnaround from Philadelphia, a later kickoff, and then turning around in a holiday week with only 4 days, really 3 days for preparation before you have to line up against your bitter rival.
Right. I know you have to play the games that they give to you, and you have to face the opponents that you're going to go against. We need to come out of this at least 2-3. That 3-game stretch right there. We need to at least be 2-3 coming out of that stretch. Could we afford to lose to Atlanta? Man, I hate losing a division game,
Right.
It might be one of those where there might be a possibility, man. The Saints really, if they lose to Atlanta, they can't lose twice to Carolina. That's the only thing I see, unless they already have home field wrapped up by week 17. It's just going to be one of those precarious situations how the team is going to lose. I'd rather lose to Pittsburgh than lose to Carolina, to be honest with you.
given where I'm calling you from at the moment, and who my family and most of my friends root for, I cannot agree with that statement. That Pittsburgh game, and there'll be plenty of time to talk trash as we get a little bit closer to that. That Pittsburgh game means almost as much to me personally as the Atlanta rematch, and at least a split with Carolina.
Yeah, well, I might be at that Pittsburgh game, so I tell you, man, I understand where you're coming from. But, all in all, Bob, I think we've got to give kudos to how Sean Payton has been really game planning. And, years past, I really took issue to some of the predictable play calling that he normally has done, but it's been really phenomenal to see how they have switched up this season. But also the execution from this offensive squad is really great. Now, they can't have a letdown, of course, right? You never really want to see it, but I really think this is one of the games that they got to show some grit, and they may have to grind it down to be able to come out with a W against the Eagles, man. One last thing, man, before we get off the air, I really am concerned still about Apple, PJ Williams. Is it me? Just me that feels this way? How do you feel, Bob?
My feelings on PJ are well known, and that is, let's just say I'm not comfortable with him, and that is the most polite way I could say it. PJ Williams has played better in the last 2 weeks. He had a couple of big breakups on former teammate Brandon Cooks to seal that Ram victory. Of course, he had the interception for the touchdown the week before against Minnesota, and he didn't show up on the stat sheet last week against Cincinnati in a negative way. Eli Apple, I'm kind of impressed with the way he's played. He did have one coverage breakdown against the Bengals on that first drive, on Cincinnati's first drive. The Saints defense as a whole continues to frustrate me on their opening drive. We've talked all night about how quickly the New Orleans offense takes control on their opening drive. Just the opposite is true for the New Orleans defense over the last 2 years. They seem to miss the beginning of the game because they don't show up for the first drive. They just don't. And then after that, they've done a nice job in most games of making the adjustments that they need to make. And even though Cincinnati was extremely banged up, especially offensively, they still did have some weapons, specifically Tyler Boyd and John Ross, that could have threatened them deep. And after that first drive, other than a meaningless drive at the end that the Bengals had, the Saints secondary played pretty well. They got a lot of help with some good pressure up front, but that's what this team is going to need to do. Is Eli Apple the next insert shutdown cornerback name here? Deion Sanders, Mel Blount, any of those guys? Eli Apple's not even the next Marshawn Lattimore. But I do like the way Apple is playing. He's aggressive. He's feisty. He can match up with receivers athletically. He can get a little handsy, so it wouldn't surprise me for him to get some penalties down the stretch. But I think opponents going into games against the Saints, I don't think they're targeting Apple. And we know that they're not targeting Marshawn Lattimore. They're still looking for, okay, where's PJ lining up at? Because if I'm going to throw the ball, that's where I'm going. And that's what worries me. Even though he has played better, right until they could be stepping up on the stand to accept the Lombardi Trophy, and God willing, let's hope that happens this year. I will be worried about PJ Williams right up until the moment that happens. Yeah,
look, Aguilar has been having some of his troubles this season as well. He's not performing as well as he did last season coming out of the slot. That's going to be PJ's responsibility. The only way you can frustrate Aguilar is to be physical with him. I just would like to continue, he and Apple, just kind of reroute some of these guys from time to time, you know. I think Apple still is a little tentative at time. But still, I mean, that's how they play the game. But I think right now, especially with these opponents coming down the pipe that we're going to have in Philly, especially the Falcons, you got to be a little bit more physical, man. And you saw how Cleveland was very physical with those wide receivers of the Falcons and frustrated them all game long. You've got to do the same thing. So hopefully we'll see how things turn out on Sunday. Again, let's be healthy. Let's come out there ready to play. And hopefully we'll have Davenport back within the next week or two. And hopefully Teron Armstead will heal as fast as possible and show back up, man. Well, any last things before we get off, Bob?
I mean, you know, I was a little bit worried coming into tonight's show that we wouldn't have enough time to cover everything, and you know that's happened in the last 2 weeks. But our guest tonight just blew through everything in an unbelievable fashion. I couldn't imagine anything more being covered. Like you pointed out, not only is Philadelphia going to be a fight. And not to overlook them despite their record. Eagles are not going to go down without a fight, but I do like the way Peyton and his team are preparing for every week. And both Snatcher and Mr. Roof pointed that out tonight, is that they were both impressed too. And to hear this hear those words coming from two men like that, to say that they're impressed with the preparation of these New Orleans Saints, it made me feel real confident in the way that this team is going to approach things down the stretch. Yeah, I know we're without Armstead, which is huge, and Davenport continues to be out of the lineup, so we can't wait to get him back. Other than that, knock on wood, the team is pretty healthy. Humming on all cylinders. It was nice to see Mr. Ingram show up big on the stat sheet last week again. We've been waiting for that to happen. So they have a nice 1-2 punch. Who Dat fans, I know you wanted to see Des Bryant, sporting his number 88 in the black and gold. Brandon Marshall is going to, I think, is going to give you some plays to put a smile on your face. It may or may not happen this week, but it's going to happen. This team is just, and you said it, Kyle, this team is just so much fun to watch. Just have fun with it. And just have fun with it. We have another big game coming up, but I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah. If they did not sign Brandon Marshall, I think Dez's presence, and you saw how those guys revere him. You remember most of those young guys were young coming up and playing football. They loved Des Bryant and his sort of pseudo-rebellious nature, right? I think Brandon can also help because Brandon is a very intelligent guy, and people don't realize that. If you haven't heard him when he used to be on the CBS Showtime NFL Live, I think. NFL Today.
Inside the NFL.
Inside the NFL, yeah, that's what it was. That he gave some great analysis at that time, man. But I'm just going to say this. Whoever is in that locker room, they're doing a great job preparing those guys. They can just continue to prepare those guys. We need some veteran leadership in the wide receiver room because I think those guys can be a little bit more physical. I'm talking about Traquan, I'm talking about Kirkwood, I'm talking about whomever else. We know Michael Thomas is, but those guys can play a little bit more physical. And when we play teams like the Steelers and Cowboys even played Philadelphia very physically. That defense,
Yes.
that's how they won that game, in my opinion. They really, every time they can knock a receiver down, they were hitting those boys. So let's see how our guys can continue to be well prepared and be physical at the point of attack. All right, Bob, it's been a great show. Tell Will I said hello, and Lauren, and you guys have keep warm up there right now in all that cold weather. And let's see how things translate, and tell the people how they can follow you on social media as well as follow your writings on the web.
Well, I can be found personally both on Twitter at BobbyR2613 and, of course, on Facebook, Bob Rose. You can follow our group, the Bayou Blitz, on Facebook. We are creeping up on 1,300 members.
Oh, wow.
And I know. And people are getting more, people that weren't active before are starting to come out of their shell and get more and more active. Folks, we love to see that. We really do. Asking questions, starting interaction, interjecting opinions, even the debates are all good-natured and very very informative on both sides. So I want to see that continue. We always try to post. We always do post replays of our show, on the Bayou Blitz group and also on our yours and my personal pages as well. So stay tuned for that. My articles can be found on, I post them through the groups and also on the Canal Street Chronicles page, which Canal Street Chronicles can be found on Facebook and Twitter at St. CSC. Of course, we're in the midst of previewing the Eagles matchups on either side of the ball right now. So hopefully you enjoy those readings as well. I know you feel the same way. We love the interactions. I feel honored when someone reaches out to me and says, "Hey, Bob, what do you think about this?" Or, "Hey, Bob, I think this. What do you think?" It's a privilege just to be thought of in that high regard. So I want to thank everybody for that as well.
Okay, well, awesome, man. You guys are putting out some pretty good stuff over there at Canal Street Chronicles. Don't forget, you can be able to follow us at saintsnewsnetwork.com. Barry Hurstis, our featured article writer. He is working hard. Barry put out like 2 or 3 in one day once. I was like, whoa, what's going on there? He had the coffee working, boy. So Barry, and check him out, and you can also check out me. During the week now, I've been putting out little short articles and tidbits here and there on the New Orleans Saints during the week at www.saintsnews.net. You can check me out. That's Kyle T. Mosley. And my handle is at Saints News, and it's at Saints News on Facebook, Instagram as well. And you can just follow us and join the crew. This is Kyle T. Mosley of Saints News Radio with Mr. Bob Rose of the Bayou Blitz here on the Bayou Blitz podcast. Join us, guys. Listen to the repeat of the show at www.saintspodcast.com. All right, Bob. Have a good one. We'll talk later. Who dat, baby?
You too. Who dat?
Take care. Bye.